I decided to try a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky Randomizer challenge where all the Pokemon, including your starter and partner, are completely randomized, as well as the dungeon floors, music, and layouts. Items on all of the dungeon floors are also completely randomized, so we never know what we're going to get. All abilities are randomized as well, including Wonder Guard, so if we come across that, it may be the end of the run, so hopefully we don't have to worry about that too much. Our adventure starts with a simple personality test in order to decide what our aura is, which will determine what starter we get. Of course, it doesn't matter what we answer to any of these questions in this test because we are getting a randomized starter no matter what. After we're done the test, our starter is randomized to Dusclops. And of course, as I did with our partner, we asked Google to pick a random number between 1 and 21, and we got Mareep. Now, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games are notorious for having a very, very volatile combat system, so hopefully that's not going to get in our way too much, but I guarantee right now that we are going to come across a bunch of dungeons that are going to absolutely wedgie us. Our balls are going to be in a vice. We have no idea how some of these dungeons are going to go. I could be stuck on them for hours at a time, but that's just part of the fun. As we wake up on the beach and find Mareep pacing in front of Wigglytuff's guild, we can see that two of our rivals are going to be randomized to a Phanpy and a Crawdon. A very interesting duo, but shouldn't be too much of a problem in this cave nonetheless. Mareep decides to come over and rudely wake us up and ask for our name, which of course we respond with Scud. Mareep is incapable of stopping talking, so he keeps going on about some random stuff, then proceeds to get mugged by a crab and an elephant, and they scurry off into the cave behind us. Of course, we're gonna have to track them down and retrieve the little stone fragment. First thing I do upon getting inside Beach Cave is taking a look at what attacks we have. First we have Disable, Thunder Punch, Bind, and Gravity. Mareep has Tackle and Growl respectively. Our abilities are Flower Gift and Skill Link, which don't really do anything for us. Mareep has Illuminate and Hustle. Illuminate is really bad in this because it means that every time he is hit by an attack, an enemy Pokemon will spawn on the floor, which just increased the whole difficulty of this challenge by about 200%. As we make our way through Beach Cave, we finally reach the pit where Crawdon and Phanpy are sitting doing God knows what with each other, and we try and get the relic fragment back from them. They proceed to laugh at us and we decide to battle them. Now, I'm not worried about this battle at all. As they come over to us, there's a sandstorm in effect, and we basically just Thunder Punch and tackle both of them to smithereens. A very easy fight at the end of the day. Those idiots have a nice cry session before we escape the cave, and Mareep asks if I want to join an exploration team. Of course, I say yes, and we decide to head over to Rhyhorn's guild. After having our feet inspected at the front gate, we go in and Rhyhorn asks us what we want our exploration team name to be, and of course I go with a classy name like Team Creep. We get excited about that, and Quilava decides to show us where our room is. We get nice straw beds on the floor. Good thing Rhyhorn's guild is pulling at all the stops for us. Our first morning in the guild starts by Ammonite absolutely berating us for sleeping in too late. Quilava proceeds to tell him to shut up, and Rhyhorn finally makes his appearance. We then get a bit more of an explanation of what's going on in this world by Quilava. Time is stopping, and more bad Pokemon are showing up. Our first objective is to go and retrieve a pearl that Spoink usually has sitting on its head. This is where we get our first taste of exactly how hard this game is going to be. Can you just attack, please, Mareep? Oh my god. Well, that was fast. Like we expected, we achieve our first death on the very first floor of our first real dungeon. Of course, we die again immediately after, and Quilava gets pissed at us and says that we fail so often the guildmaster must be angry with us. Luckily, it only takes us 2 tries and we find the pearl on the 3rd attempt. Turtwig is super happy with us, and we get to move on to the next chapter. Now, I ended up losing the recording for the entire chapter 3, which isn't a big deal because it was super boring. Basically, Drowsy just kidnapped a child, and we had to go fight him and save the child. Our next order of business was dealing with these 2 idiots again, and we meet their leader, which is an Espeon. We then go outside and get directed into the brand new cafe run by Dodrio, Deoxys, and Lucario. Who else would be running a cafe? I decided to just take on a few easy missions in order to progress the story faster, so we basically just go to Beach Cave, rescue a Rotom, and that's pretty much it for this day. The next day we're instructed to do sentry duty, which means we're the ones who have to look at all the feet of the Pokemon trying to enter the guild. We end up doing okay and beating our previous high score, which was 0, so Quilava's pretty happy with us and we get to move on. We find out that the 3 dumbasses are staying with the guild for a while with the intention of hijacking our expedition. At this point we take on a few more really easy missions so that we can progress the story even further. We end up finding a green gummy and rescuing a Vileplume, as well as a Togetic. 3 missions done in one, which is not something that we could say very often for this challenge. Vampy, Crawdon, and Espeon decide to go raid the guild's food storage, and it's up to us to go and get more perfect apples so Rhyhorn doesn't commit an act of terrorism against everybody in the guild. Little did I know this was going to be a very, very challenging mission for us. Oh my god, the traps are insane in here. Holy shit. Oh my god, every tile's a trap. Whoops. Will Dark Pulse reach from here? Are you fucking kidding me? That first attempt didn't go too well, but then we ran across this cute little Squirtle and he decided to join our team. Oh, you're shitting me. Oh no. Immediately after, we run into our first monster house, which is just as horrible as it sounds. Luckily enough, Aerodactyl decides to join us before we are absolutely destroyed by a Wormadam's bug bite. Of course, we have to die just a few more times before we can even come close to completing our mission. One thing I severely underestimated in this challenge was how much traps would affect it, like this, where Mareep flies into Aerodactyl and takes him out because of a whirlwind trap. We promptly get sent into another dimension by an Octillery before we lose again. Finally, after all that suffering, we make it to the end and Team Skull has pulled a prank on us and stolen all the perfect apples. We're forced to leave empty-handed and go back to Quilava, who absolutely loses it on us. He threatens to take away our dinner and starve us to death. Of course, like any normal person would do, when the rest of the guild is eating dinner, we're forced to just sit in the corner and watch. He wouldn't even allow us to go back to bed without eating. We have to watch. We then go to the cafe next day and Lucario tells us about some lame recycling plan he has. We decide to ignore it so that we can keep throwing our straws into the ocean and feed the turtles. We choose to go on a mission with Vampy on our team before we run into a Giratina and a Slowbro, and this went about as well as you think it would. Oh, what's going on with this way? Yeah, it's just gonna clobber our entire team. That's about right. We go on a few more attempts and they go about as well as the last one. We keep getting dummied over and over again. I decide to completely scrap that idea and go back to Beach Cave and do a few more easy missions so that we can keep going with the story. We rescue a Kricketot and then next day we head back to Drenched Bluff to complete a couple more missions. We then run into an absolutely messed up trap floor and we're forced to use a trap bust orb, or else we're probably going to use his confusion to walk back into the stealth rocks and die. Somehow we escape with our life and we come across a Yanmega, which is the outlaw that we're hunting down. We end up taking him out and going back to the guild. That night we get our first look at our enemy, which will later become our friend, and it is randomized to a speed form Deoxys, which is going to be super handy when he joins our team later in the game. Rhyhorn then pulls a fast one on everybody and actually invites the entire guild to go on the expedition. We're paired up with Metapod and we're left to go to our first dungeon, which is Craggy Coast. We immediately get destroyed by a Deoxys and an Arbok on the first floor. Our second attempt doesn't go much better as Mareep gets taken out by a Politoed that has Perish Song. Why not? Luckily, our third attempt is all it takes before we get out of Craggy Coast, and we have to continue on to Mount Horn. Amazingly, it only takes us one attempt to get through Mount Horn, and we go to Chapter 8, which is called Deoxys' Heart. Metapod gets super excited that we make it back to base camp. Quilava decides to get mad at us for being late, but we can't worry about it too much. Mareep picks up this red gem as we go towards our first dungeon, where we get mucked by a Giratina immediately. And almost instantly after, this happens. Dumb Bastiodon. What? What? He faints if he goes through that? What do you mean he faints when he goes through that? Oh my good Jesus. Yep, turns out when your partner falls through a pitfall trap, they just die immediately instead of bringing you to the next floor, which is what usually happens. We then place Mareep's red gem into the heart of Groudon, which is actually Deoxys, and he removes all the fog, which is very nice so that we can actually get up to Fogbound Lake. Amazingly, this dungeon only takes us one attempt as well, as we collect our stairs orb and immediately get through to the checkpoint. We hear lots of growling, but decide to go on nonetheless. We of course know that we are going to be fighting a Deoxys here. This shouldn't be too hard as long as we can disable him and then proceed to hit him with lots of ghost and dark type attacks. I ended up picking up a violent seed somewhere in the dungeon, which will basically maximize your attack and special attack. I decide to feed it to myself because I can do all the super effective attacks on him. We then go for our disable play, which works out pretty well, and then we just decide to hit him with tons of dark pulses, thunders, and astonishes before Deoxys falls. Moving on, we get to the lake where we meet Absol. The rest of our guild comes and joins us, and we get to look at the beautiful, breathtaking view of a bunch of combustion and skiplooms jumping across the geysers. Upon returning to the guild, we are greeted with a very special visitor known as Onyx. Onyx is a famous explorer, but we're not allowed to bother him, so we're forced to just continue on with our regular duties. Oh my god. Okay, well, I guess we're not going to Mount Bristle anymore. Obviously that went horribly wrong, so we decide to take a stroll through Treasure Town and talk with Onyx, who is berating the Perugly sisters with lots of creepy flirtations. Later that night, Quilava tells the guild that another time gear was stolen, however it was not the one that we discovered at Fogbound Lake. We do, however, find out that Deoxys has stolen another one, and this one was stolen from Fogbound Lake, we just do not have knowledge of it yet. Arcanine and Hippowdon then decide to meet us outside the guild and tell us that one of their items was stolen and we have to go to Amp Plains in order to get it back. Little did I know that this would be the beginning of one of the worst stretches I would have in this entire game. We just keep dying over and over and over again. The worst one being when we set off a trap next to a Kecleon and it thinks we're attacking it and it decides to absolutely pummel us. Oh my god. We finally make it to the checkpoint and little do we know it's just getting started. God. Oh! Oh my god, are you... What? No! No! We proceed to get our asses handed to us a few more times before we finally make it through. Dude, wow. Are you fucking kidding me? Just kidding, it takes us many more attempts before we can actually get through to Amp Clearing. This is when we're confronted with our next boss fight, which of course is a Shieldon and his pack of Absol. Our strategy for this first run through is just to use Dark Pulse on as many Absol as possible. Even though it's not very effective, we can damage multiple enemies at one time with it, and get Mareep to use Thunderbolt, which will damage enemies sitting right next to each other. At this point, I also remember that Mareep has Discharge, which will damage every single enemy on the entire floor, which is huge for boss fights like this. Unfortunately, I remembered this a bit too late. Shieldon uses Ancient Power and gets the Omni Boost, and we unfortunately cannot tank enough hits for Mareep before he's taken out with Ancient Power himself. Come on, Mareep. No, man. A Shieldon, are you fucking kidding me? Yes, that meant we had to go through Amp Clearing again to get back to it, but surprisingly, again, we did it first try and got back to the boss fight. I finally remembered to enable Discharge right off the bat. All the Absol were taken out super easily. Before it was just us and Shieldon, and this time we had absolutely no problems. Onyx then decides to join us after we did all the work and help us get back to Treasure Town. We return the water float to the brothers and then take a walk on the beach with Onyx before Metapod comes over and tells us that there's some big news going on. We hurry back to the guild where everybody is now learning the identity of Deoxys, who is the Pokemon that is stealing all the time gears. The guild has now placed all of their efforts on stopping the time gears from being stolen, and we head off to Northern Desert. Nice. We made it through. First try on like 16 floors. That's insane. Yep, this seems to be a theme. We either get through first try on a dungeon or it takes us 85,000 attempts. I have no idea why that's the case, But once we get to the end of Northern Desert, we finally convince Mareep to jump into the quicksand with us, where we reach Quicksand Pit, and this does not go as well as Northern Desert, as we run into a Spiritomb who annihilates us. This would be the start of a vicious cycle of going back to Quicksand Cave, where we just keep dying over and over again. Like this Snorlax, who just pounces on us. Next one is a Chatot, who just uses chatter and destroys us, but nothing compares to this Kabuto. What even is that? What the fuck? We finally get through the checkpoint before this Toxicroak immediately has his way with us. The accuracy in this game pisses me off to no end. Like, what is that? Four misses in a row. Ignoring the horrible accuracy in this game, we move on to immediately run into a monster house after a Finneon blows us up. That went about as well as you thought it would, ending in defeat again. Yep, there we go, on the 9th floor. Second last one, monster house, no discharges left for Mareep. Of course, this is just how this has gone. We try again right after, and this Bastiodon has other ideas for us. Gets the Omni boost after we die just to flex on us too. This is the first part of the run where I'm really starting to question everything. I can't with this. I can't do it, man. I cannot do it. This is the worst one by far so far. I've been on this one for an hour. It's 10 floors, it's nothing groundbreaking. But right when I thought all hope was lost, we finally got it done. Oh my god, we did it. Just then we're ambushed by an Apom, which should not be a very difficult boss fight whatsoever. Our strategy for this one is simple, we just bombard it with attacks. Purple Monkey thinks we're the ones who are stealing time gears, and he was warned that we would be coming to take his. That's not the case, of course, and we head on to Crystal Cave. A very easy run. Again, just first try, make it through, no problems. I don't understand why this keeps happening. Crystal Crossing, on the other hand, was a completely different story. We get taken up by a Wormadam right away, and then a Krogunk right after. The fucker just knocked my Amber Tear in the water! Are you shitting me? Yep, to add insult to injury after we lose one of the best items in the game, a Jolteon takes us out right after. It's not before we get worked around by a Rhyhorn again before we finally start getting somewhere. We fight a Torkoal and he decides he wants to join our team. Our happiness is short-lived though as we run into a Krogunk right after. Can you help me, Mareep, you fucking useless piece of shit? I'm done for tonight. I can't do anymore. After dying to an Apom, I decided to call it a night. My mind had been pushed to the absolute limits, and it needed a break desperately. The next day, however, I picked up right where I left off and ran into a Remoraid. Who thought it'd be a good idea to give Remoraid, like, Bullet Seed with 41 damage a hit? That's ridiculous! I was being pushed to the breaking point. We finally got some good luck and added Mudkip to the team before it happened at last. Floors. Oh my god, we finally did it. Oh, finally. Yes. We had finally made it through Crystal Crossing, a dungeon that is probably going to be added to the list of things that will keep me up at night. We run over to confront Deoxys, but not before Porygon Z can activate the failsafe, which will protect the time gear for now, but ends up just pissing Deoxys off. It's time to go through our next boss fight, but Deoxys is weak to both Dark Pulse and Astonish, so that is going to be our goal for this, is just spam those attacks while disabling him so he can't attack us back. He packs quite a bit of a punch, but after we get close, we take him out with a Thunderbolt. He is a super sore loser, so he lashes out on us, and we get sent back to Treasure Town, where Onyx gathers everyone in the town square to devise a plan for capturing Deoxys. While we wait for all that nonsense to happen, we're going to go and grind out a few more easy missions in Beach Cave just to progress the story again, but we're going to run in, knock out that Jumpluff, and jump right back into Beach Cave to take out this Sea King. Lava then tells us that there's nothing we can do but wait for the capture of Deoxys, but before he's finished talking, Noctowl says that there's news and we're to gather in the town square, and of course, Deoxys has been caught by none other than Onyx and the Raikou minions. Just as we're about to say goodbye to Onyx, he decides to non-consensually grab us by the chest and drag us into the big black hole behind him. He will be hearing from our lawyers. Upon coming to the future, we get our first look at the big baddie in this game, Master Squirtle. Definitely not someone that's going to make me shiver my timbers, but we're going to have to fight him at some point nonetheless. Us along with Deoxys narrowly escape the public execution that we've been set up for, and we escape into the mountains as the Raikou are trying to pursue us. I would like to tell you that Chasm Cave was a very easy dungeon, and to be honest, it completely was. We got through it on the first try. Our next order of business was getting through Dark Hill, which was not quite as easy as Chasm Cave. We immediately died to a Laron, and then a Dunsparce right after. Needless to say, my partner was getting on my nerves. You could help me out, you know. God fucking damn it, Mareep, do something! You're just standing there like an idiot. And of course, the game couldn't make it too easy on us, so we had to die a couple more times before we were actually able to get through this dungeon. Not quite as bad as some of the other ones, but still bad nonetheless. Please be it. Oh, thank God! I decided then to take a reviver seed out of storage because I had a weird feeling in my chest that we might need it. Oh, didn't think we'd have to use it so fast, but there it goes. Just as fast as we found it, it's gone already. Fuck's sakes. And of course, just like usual, we had to keep going and run into another one of our favorite Pokemon to run into in this entire run, which is a Ledian or a Lediba that has Silver Wind, which can attack you anywhere on the whole screen and does a ton of damage for absolutely no reason. Deoxys then gets jumped by a Finneon, and we're forced to keep going, pulling our hair out, trying to get through the Deep Sealed Ruin. It may not seem like it, but I'm actually having the best gaming experience of my life right now. That's just fucked. Like, you're gonna make Wooper do 63 damage with a Mud Bomb to me. Luckily, Wooper was the last enemy to take its turn pounding us, so we moved in to fight the Finneon. We can see that Deoxys is down, and the Finneon was a very easy battle, even though it has self-destruct at the end. Finneon then promptly runs away, and it's finally time for us to team up with Deoxys. It should be a huge boost and hopefully can help us get through the rest of these future dungeons in an easier manner. Deoxys has its regular stats, however its moveset is the same as Grovyle's is in the original games, meaning he'll use moves like Dig, Quick Attack, and Leaf Blade. Onyx finally decides to grow a brain and decides to beg the help of Master Squirtle, the god of time, in order to stop us getting back to the past and changing the future. As it happens, it was extremely easy to get through Dusk Forest, and we can now meet up with Deoxys' friend from the future, Skitty. Skitty is the time-traveling Pokemon in this game, so we're gonna have to get her help to get back to the past. She joins our team and we head through Deep Dusk Forest, where we're immediately greeted with a Lediba, who promptly destroys us. A Lediba can do like 100 damage with Silver Wind. What is that? What is that? It's a Lediba! Fortunately, that was the only hiccup we had as we make it to the passage of time. Of course, upon reaching it, Master Squirtle uses his infinite power to prevent us from getting back to the past, but we manage to escape by the skin of our teeth. Upon returning back home, we decide to set up camp in our secret lair as we discuss what to do next, which will involve hunting down the remaining Time Gears and bringing them to Temporal Tower. Mareep and Deoxys decide to get up early the next morning and talk about us behind our backs. This is no issue though, because we're going to go to Tree Shroud Forest in order to find the Time Gear there. Now, Tree Shroud Forest is known as the dungeon with the most continuous floors in the main game, so needless to say, I had my issues getting through all 20 floors of it. Are you kidding me? What? He's impossible to hit! Like 19th floor. 19th fucking floor and we lose. Fortunately, that wasn't too bad, and we ended up getting to Deep Tree Shroud Forest right after, but of course, time has remained stopped there. We end up convening back on the beach and making the decision that we're gonna go back to Rhyhorn's guild and get the help of the other guild members. They seem relatively unfazed that their associates just got pulled into a black hole and dragged to the future against their will, but oh well, we'll get over it. The next thing we have to do is go through Waterfall Cave and talk to Butterfree, the town elder, in order to gather information on how to reach the hidden land. Butterfree is old and senile and doesn't really have a lot of information for us, but comes back to the guild the next day to provide some more insight on the proof needed in order to access the hidden land. Before we head out to Brine Cave, we run down to the beach to see if Deoxys is back. Of course, Team Skull is going to try and screw with us and steal the relic fragment away from Mareep. As we enter Brine Cave, we run into a monster house almost immediately and get our asses handed to us. Upon our second attempt, we manage to reach the checkpoint. This is where Team Skull comes out of nowhere, sacks Mareep and takes the relic fragment for themselves, and runs deeper into the cave. Quilava gets pissed and runs after them, so now we have to chase them all down. We of course don't make it very far before a Jolteon ends our run early. Fortunately, that's the only attempt it takes as we reach the pit on the next one. The boss fights so far have been pretty easy, but I was definitely not prepared for what I would see when the bandits came down off the ceiling. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no, Ledians! Oh, you're shitting me, we're done. I don't think we're gonna ever be able to beat this boss fight. Fortunately, I severely overestimated the Ledians, and we took them out super easy, and it was just us and Alakazam, and of course with Disable and Shadow Punch on our side, he was no trouble either. Another easy boss fight, and we were on to the Brine Cave pit, where we would eventually find Rotom, and he would take us away to the hidden land. I'm not exactly sure what the logistics are of riding on a ghost robot that is an electric type through water over the sea, blah blah blah, but it seemed to work out anyways. Rotom decided then to just start flying out of nowhere as he takes us to the gap in time where we see the hidden land. This place still haunts my dreams as it was one of the hardest dungeons in the main game easily for me growing up, so I was very nervous to get through it this time. However, I severely overestimated it and we got through the hidden land in the very first try. Hidden Highland was no harder and we got right to the old ruins. After we got out of the ruins, we headed up the stairs to the Rainbow Stone Ship, which would take us to Temporal Tower. However, this was short-lived as we were soon interrupted by Raikou and Onix, respectively. They think that they're going to take us back to the future, and of course we have another boss fight coming up, one that is very difficult in the main games as well. Our strategy is going to remain the same as it has been with all the other boss fights, which is disabling all of Mareep's moves except for Discharge so it can take out as many minions as possible. We decide to put Onix asleep so that we can get rid of the Raikou first. Onix decides to be a horrible boss and stay asleep while all of his minions get destroyed, and now it's just 3 against 1. We have the luxury of having the move Disable, so we can literally just paralyze him and have him stand there while we bombard him with moves, easily taking him out. Or so we thought we did before he stands back up and lashes out at us. Deoxys jumps in the way to protect us and decides to try and push Onix back into the future. He drops the time gears right before he goes into the dimensional hole, never to be seen again. After a very emotional goodbye, Mareep and I decide that we need to continue on with our mission to stop the planet's paralysis. Mareep's being a little bit of a baby here, he didn't even know Deoxys that long, but that's fine. We then hitch a ride on the Rainbow Hockey Puck to get up to Temporal Tower, where we will have a master showdown with the King of Time himself, Primal Squirtle. We hop off the hockey puck and head right into Temporal Tower. Little did I know this would be perhaps the greatest test of my mental strength and patience thus far, as we immediately get annihilated by a Slowbro and a War Turtle. This next death is actually pretty funny. As you can see, our belly is empty and we use a Troll Orb to gather all the items on the floor. Little did I know that these items actually belong to someone else as the music changed and we begin to get tracked down by an unknown enemy. If you didn't know, if you steal items from the Kecleon stores on these floors, they will actually track you down and they are insanely powerful enemies. Oh, we stole all the items from his shop. Yep, yeah, we deserve that. God damn it, that's such stupid timing. We continue on our next attempt before getting sniped by an ice beam by a Lapras. Next, we're working on clearing out a monster house, but a Numble with earth power decides to make short work of us on that floor. Mareep then gets a high jump kick directly to the nose, and we're eliminated again. After that, a Feraligatr decides to have his way with us before we get killed again by another Numble and earth power. And it's being earth power, and we're standing on the staircase and we die again. This is like 10 attempts, but they're all so short. We die right when we get in now. At this point, I'm starting to lose hope. It's just death after death. That's just like so fast. We're doing so well, and then it's just instantly some bullshit happens, and I'm done. Right away. Against my better judgment, I decide to keep trying before we run into a monster house on the next floor immediately. Of course, there's 4 feraligators on this floor, so we don't truly stand a chance at all. The feraligators do make short work of us, but luckily this is the last time we'll have to go through Temporal Tower. Oh, we made it, boys. Holy shit. Thank God. After a real quick crying session, we go on to Temporal Spire. Uh-oh. Oh, nah. Of course, not long after, we run into again, one of the most powerful enemies in the entire game, and Giratina wipes us from the face of the earth with ominous wind once again. It's actually comical. It's actually comical. Like, it's actually fucked. What is this game? It's actually just funny at this point. Like, what the fuck? Yep, needless to say, Temporal Spire was just as difficult as Temporal Tower. This was really making me question a lot of my life decisions at this point, as we kept dying over and over and over again. Anything you could imagine. We were dying to traps, we were dying to enemies, we were dying to anything and everything that we possibly could die to. Monster houses everywhere, broken enemies, broken moves. Literally anything you could think of that was happening to us was probably happening to us. It was at this point I was about to quit for the night, but we finally got through to Temporal Pinnacle, where we will eventually be facing down against Primal Squirtle, the Master of Time. Of course. We obviously had quite the advantage in this battle going in because we have Mareep, who is an electric type, against Squirtle, who's a water type. The plan for this was just to disable him no matter what, set up payback, and then just let Mareep go to town with its electric type moves. It wasn't long until Primal Squirtle fell without doing any damage to either of us. Probably the easiest boss fight of the entire run, ironically. Easiest boss fight of the entire game. Like, god damn it, man. While Squirtle is down recharging, we decide to use this window of opportunity to run behind him and put the time gears into the slots. This will hopefully stop the planet's paralysis and effectively save the world. As tremors and lightning start, we think we haven't succeeded until Squirtle wakes us up and he tells us that he has regained his reason and he is all better now. No more grumpies. As Squirtle thanks us and tells us he's going to fix everything, now it's time for us to start heading back home. We of course know that us being a Pokemon from the future will disappear now that time has been changed. Mareep is unaware of this and sees us disappear into thin air right before his very eyes. I can't imagine this will scar him at all in the future. After we disappear, Mareep decides to go back and hitch a ride on the magic hockey puck to go back to the Hidden Land and return to Treasure Town, where he will tell everybody the story about how he and his overpowered partner, yours truly, saved the world. Mareep gets a warm welcome back at the guild. Everybody's happy to see him. Very, very happy ending, except for the fact that Mareep's best friend disappeared before his very eyes. Before Mareep goes to bed that night, he decides to go take a walk on the beach and watch the Krabby blow the bubbles. I will say this sunset scene is one of the nicest, visually appealing scenes in all of Pokemon. Mareep then goes through a very lengthy flashback before breaking down in front of Metapod and getting very, very sad that we've disappeared. This is when the credits begin to roll. After waiting for the credits to finish, we realize that that's not all there is to the story, as we get flashed back to Temporal Tower where Master Squirtle is standing there. He says he can feel Mareep's sadness from this far away, and he decides to entrust him with a gift. This gift is of course the greatest gift anyone has ever given or received, and it is Scud reappearing on the beach to be reunited with his little yellow sheep friend. And that's it. That's how I beat a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky Randomizer challenge. Now, I am not lying or exaggerating when I tell you this was one of the hardest challenges I've ever done in my entire life. This tested my patience endlessly, my mental strength, anything you can imagine this thing tested. It was so hard and frustrating at times. This was about 18 hours of gameplay that it took me to complete this challenge, and that's playing pretty non-stop, zero distractions. So this one was truly a grind, but it was very rewarding to complete it. So anyways, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you give this a try for yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot.